Welcome back to the Lights On podcast. So glad you're here. This is your first time here. Welcome. We're glad you're here. This podcast is all about making things that have been cloudy just a little bit clearer. We all need a little bit of light in our lives sometimes when it gets confusing, and this podcast is all about that. In this episode, you are going to love. I have a conversation with my friend Chris Durso, who has been my real dear friend for a very long time. He's a renowned speaker and leader and church planter. And I just love who he is as a human being. And we get into it in this conversation. You're going to hear, as you settle in to listen to this, you're going to hear us talk a lot about relationships, how to make these better as we get older. I don't know about you, but I want to keep on having better relationships. And we talk about the human side of leadership. Sometimes we put pastors and people we respect and love on a pedestal and don't realize they're just like we are. And we talk about what it looks like behind the curtain of leadership. I'll give you a spoiler alert, a whole lot of humanity. And we talk about that, what that means, what churches can be doing differently to talk about that side of life. And yes, we talk about therapy and why I love this conversation, because we point to the real truth of therapy. There are some people who still think therapy means to be weak, to be soft, to just sit and wallow and talk about your feelings with somebody random. And it's such a disservice to what it is. Therapy is a lot of hard work, but here's what you find out, and both of us point to this in this conversation. Therapy, yeah, it is about you, but once you start doing the work, you realize this is really about people I love. It's about giving the people around you a better quality and a better version of you. So that's a beautiful way to frame it. As you think about the work you're doing on yourself, therapy is really a way to say, I'm going to change and grow in some of these broken and hurt areas in my life so they don't hurt and break other people. So when people don't do therapy, there is a way to look at it where you're like, I guess you're good. You're basically saying, I'm good. The way I am is the way I am. And that's the way people are going to experience me. We found a different truth to be just as real, which is maybe some of that stuff that's hurt and broken in you, maybe it can be healed and you can bring the people you love somebody better. And so Chris talks about some very vulnerable, real things. He talks about his road, which includes abuse, PTSD, how he's worked through that. So if that resonates with you, or maybe you haven't started that journey yet, this will inspire you to at least think about it, which is good enough for me today. So grateful that you're here. Settle in, get comfortable, and enjoy this conversation with me and my friend Chris Durso. Lights on right now. Welcome to Lights On Pod.
Yeah.
Chris Durso, glad you're here. I love you, my brother. We were just
you.
talking about this ridiculous Christian sacred cows, and the context is you have started an amazing Bible study here in the city. And we are in the Catholic Church that you use, and so grateful that they've let us just set up shop here and hang out. But you have this amazing revival thing happening, and somebody made a comment, what are you going to do about all the idols?
Yeah, all the idols. How could you have church around all the idols?
So let me get this straight. But that's just a classic,
Right.
Too much time on your hands. Feel free to see it from a different angle statement from somebody who's maybe got a little bit too much time.
Sure.
How about, let's look at the other 9 things that are also true. Middle of New York City, Soho Bible study, a lot of people coming to just get a little bit better, to be part of a community that's growing and just be, someone who's pursuing their faith. And we're going to talk about the idols.
Right.
Okay. Well, they would have hated our church. We had a building one time, there were literal golden idols. All we would do every service is, Lord, we pray for all the demons on this wall. Let's rock. But that's the beauty of New York.
Right.
By the way, I love you. We've known each other such a long time. And it's beautiful to sit here with you, happy and healthy. And New York is not like anywhere else, bro. Mm-mm. And you are true New York. I always say, Durso's he is New York. I am a Virginia Beach proud transplant. But you are true New York. What's New York mean to you? Is it, because it's different, man. Everybody's proud of where they're from.
Yeah.
But when you're in this city, there's a different weight to it.
Yeah, what I love about our city is that it's just authentic. So you're never going to get anyone faking it. They're going to be honest with you about what they're going through. So if you ask someone how they're doing and you stop to listen, they will tell you. They're going to tell you whether it was a great day, a bad day, whether they got paid today or they didn't get paid today. They're going to be that honest. And that's what I love about the city more than anywhere else.
Did you see that meme, that viral video was going around of a New York bus where some lady was yelling,
at the bus driver, and the dude was in the row, and he was just like, he started going, and he was like, why don't you get a different job so you can get your own car? It ain't the driver's fault. And they just started going at it, man, and it went viral because it was a classic New York response. Like, if you're going to yell at a bus driver, well, I got nothing but time too. Like, how does he have anything to do with the fact that you're running 5 minutes late? It was very funny, but that's New York. That's what you're saying. It's like, if we're going to talk about it, let's talk about it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it. We're going to have this conversation.
Yeah.
We're not going to just cover it with pleasantries, which is totally different than the South.
I mean, you built a very special youth ministry in Queens.
Yeah. Do you remember the first time you came? I remember the first time you came. I was so proud that you were coming to see us, and when we walked out, you were like, "Bro, I didn't realize you were in the hood," and I was like, "I didn't know we were in the hood either." Until Carl just told me we were in the hood.
Yeah, bro. Yeah.
And it was amazing. I remember you coming, preaching, loving on everyone. In Queens.
Yeah, it was. I love what you built there. It was special. You know, when in this chapter of your life, you are starting a fresh page here in New York.
Yeah,
it's different though. I was talking to our mutual friend Charles Metcalf about, you know, when you see people planting churches all over the country, it's always cool. It's always fun, but New York is a very different beast. Yeah. What has that been like from your angle? Because if you're not going to fit in at a church growth conference, it's not going to be the same. You can't use, you know, some methods that might work everywhere else, and that's legitimate. But man, like I know I got some answers myself, but what's it like for you? Like what's the difference? Like,
yeah, I think it's prayer and awareness. And what I mean by awareness is you could have a conversation with someone, an incredible leader that's built a great church somewhere else, and they're going to start telling you, hey, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
Why? Because that's what worked for them in whatever city they're in. And when they start talking like that, you're like, I'm not sure that that's going to work for the people here. And so when I think about
the Easter egg drop might not go as well.
Yeah, it's not going to work. We don't have
on
enough
the
space.
Williamsburg Bridge. You might die. Yeah.
So like when I think about what we're building here and what we're doing here, we're just trying to speak in the language that they understand.
Yeah.
And reach New York. See, the thing about the city that you know this so well is they just want the truth. And people think that they're offended by the truth, and that's not true. New York says, give it to me as you feel it. And if you lie to me, that's what I'm going to be offended by. If you try to sugarcoat it for me, I could spot that a mile away. I'm going to move away because you're not going to tell me the truth. In other words, I can't trust you. So here, honesty is love. The more honest you are, the more love you're going to receive, because they don't even care how you say it as long as you said what you knew you wanted to say.
Yeah. Are you filled with hope as you step into this journey? Because I love you and your wife are, you know, you guys are special people, and when you could do anything, but you're like, you know what, we're gonna do this here. We're gonna give it a shot. Just start to see how it feels. Like what's going into that? Yeah. Like, why do you think this is gonna be something that matters?
There's so much hope because it's been faith step after faith step the entire time. We didn't plan this.
Yeah.
As much as I love Soho, so here's what makes Soho so beautiful. If you grew up in New York, Soho is where you would come to shop, where you would get the latest drops of sneakers or clothing. But growing up in Queens or Brooklyn, you never imagined that you could do anything here, let alone lead a church here.
Right.
So to be able to be here and to see how it's unfolded with our friends Robin and Jamie, who opened up their incredible hair salon, Kin House, to us, which is just around the corner.
Yeah.
To then, when we grew out of space there, this incredible church said, hey, use our space. I mean, they just opened up the doors and said, absolutely, we would love for you to meet here. And we weren't looking for it. It was in a season where we were trying to figure out what we should do next as leaders, knowing that we love New York and knowing we want to build something great here. And Robin and Jamie reach out and say, hey, do a Bible study in our hair salon. And it just grows. It just is this organic, beautiful thing that happens. So as I look at the trajectory of it, it's just been God moment after God moment the entire time. So I feel like I'm just walking in obedience rather than operating a strategy.
And that's why it's going to go well. And you're a Jesus guy. And I say that because I was thinking about people often have asked, you know, from different angles, why did what we had, why did it work? Why did it go well? And why did we have an influence to a certain degree? And the most under-talked about part of it was that we were really clear about Jesus. Like the stuff that people want to make it about, like whether it's music or cool people or preaching or whatever. It's like, well, there's a lot of that. But any church, any pastor that like makes a very clear, definitive display of who Jesus is, you're going to have an impact.
Sure.
And that to me was always our thread in this city. Complicated city, crazy. I mean, when you get here, when you plant a church, I mean, everyone has all the New York stuff. Like New Yorkers don't want to do this, and they won't say that, and they won't come here, and you can't preach like that. And I remember thinking, hey, okay, we're gonna. This gospel has made it through some really rough times. I don't think it's barely gonna hold up in New York. So when I think about anything you do, I'm always like, that dude preaches the real gospel. It's not going to be a problem.
You know, it goes back to what we were just saying. So New York is like, if you give me Jesus and the teachings of Jesus, I'm with that. But all that other stuff that may work somewhere else is cool, but keep it there.
Yeah.
We want to keep New York, New York. I remember one time popping into one of your staff meetings, and you were talking to your team, and you used this term. You said, guys, I want to make sure that we capture raw. We are raw in what we're doing, and we're not trying to polish it.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful mindset. That's brilliant leadership, especially when you're stepping into a space like this, because you got to know your audience. You got to know who you're talking to. And being a New Yorker, born and raised.
You're going to say it like that? You're just trying to double down that I'm not born and raised?
No.
And you know what? It's funny.
A little bit.
Whenever New Yorkers are like, I'm from here. I'm like, you're not really from here. No one's from anywhere. Everybody came from somewhere else. So just back up, New Yorkers, on that. I'm from New York, kinda. But
you know what? But I'm only going back to it because like when someone asks me like, man, how do you do church here? I don't know any other way.
Yeah. I got you. Yeah.
I grew up in Queens and Brooklyn and Manhattan and just going to church and different churches and being around here and just doing life. And so as a result, it's like, man, how we normally talk as New Yorkers, let's just do that within church. And it's beautiful.
You have chosen to be really vulnerable with some of the things you've walked through and you're walking through. I think that's why people even gravitate towards you to a different degree now. What has some of that road looked like? Because I like talking to ministers that I know, because I know there's still people who think that ministers are superheroes.
Yeah.
And part of that's the problem. But it's always beneficial to hear kind of the underside of that and go, nah, you know, you've walked through some stuff. Can you speak to it a little bit about what the road has looked like maybe the last 3 or 4 years that led you here to be in a place that you're in now, which is perfect. Like you don't have a flaw. It's like, Carl, you're healthy, you're happy, your eyes are bright, your spirit is full. It doesn't mean everything in your life is going awesome exactly as you want it.
Sure.
But you yourself have a absolute sense of peace that I'm just so grateful for, and it's inspiring to see what's led to that.
So 3 years ago, I had this battle with PTSD. I sat in my first therapy appointment, and the therapist asked me, how was your childhood? And that one question allowed all the lights to come on. And now all these repressed memories that I had not spoken about ever just started pouring out of me like a faucet. I had been molested several times as a child within church people, peers, but I never spoke about it. In fact, the one time I did speak about it when I was a child, nobody did anything about it. The people that were supposed to protect me didn't protect me. So I learned in that moment, it's better to say nothing. So as I grew up in church, and there was already a lot of things working against me, right? I'm the pastor's kid. I'm always the only white kid. I'm into hip hop, but I don't look the part. And there's all these things where you're just trying to figure out where you fit in, and you learn that sometimes the best way to fit in is to say nothing. Just play it cool. Give a head nod. Don't say too much. Don't draw too much attention to yourself. So when you're battling through those feelings and those emotions, you learn very quickly that if I say something, especially in the 90s, by the way, you're going to think different of me. You're going to call me weak. That's now going to make me a target. So say nothing. So I repress these memories, and I go on with my life. I get married, and I become a pastor, and I'm leading. And then in my late 30s, this therapist asked me this question, and my wife's sitting right next to me, by the way. And now these things that I've shared pieces with my wife about now start coming out in full detail. And it was one of the greatest but hardest moments ever, because it felt so good to get it all out.
Yeah.
But then it led me into a season of PTSD. And you know what's funny about that term PTSD is that people throw it around so flippantly, and it doesn't sound so strong or violent as it actually is. So I'm sitting in this therapy appointment. He asked me one question: how was your childhood? And now all of a sudden I start to share all these repressed memories that I had shared with no one ever, hardly even thought about myself. And then as a result of sharing it, it felt great to get it all out, but then it led me into the season of PTSD. And the thing about PTSD is that people use the term so flippantly. I've used the term so flippantly without ever having any experience with anyone that's ever dealt with it. Now going through it myself, I'm not able to talk. I'm not able to think straight. I can't sleep. I'm wanting to isolate because I'm trying to figure out what all these emotions mean. These memories now have been unlocked, and I just can't function properly. As this is happening, by the way, there's all this tension going on between me and my parents with the church that I just transitioned and took. Well, then also, it's the height of COVID. My wife and I have COVID. I remember at the time my social media gets hacked and people are trying to sell it back to me for a whole lot of money. My phone gets hacked, and we're just dealing with all of these things, which in the church world, we would say it was an attack, and it absolutely felt like an attack. And so as you're battling through that, just trying to figure out what is going on, that was the space where I started to heal. But what I've learned through it is that the goal was peace, but the pathway to peace is hardly peaceful. And that is a beautiful description for me to describe the season I went through. It was violent, it was aggressive, it was confusing. Yeah. So as my wife and I are navigating this season of figuring it all out, which is really called healing, by the way.
Right.
As we're healing together, holding hands, doing everything that we need to do. I mean, I did everything like go away to a trauma camp where I spent a month just processing and saying out loud everything it is that happened to me as a child so I could work through all of those details. I was able to heal. As we're healing through that, my story now, I then start to share it with the people that were supposed to protect me. I start to share it with my parents, and one parent didn't have a clue. The other parent tried to downplay it by saying, well, that's just how boys play.
Right.
That's not how boys play. There was nothing okay with it, and we never spoke about it. And I'm saying that because there's somebody listening to this right now that knows that story oh too well. They go through something difficult, and it gets ignored. When I think about the church I want to build in New York, or the person, the human I want to be, I want to be the kind of person that could sit with anybody, regardless of how tense it becomes, and just allow them to share their story and listen. Because here's what I've learned. Life is layered.
Yeah.
It's like an onion. You got to pull that thing back. And if you just allow people to share where they're at, you'll be able to help them to get to where they need to be. But I can't help you get to where you need to be if I don't really know what you're going through. And we can't generalize trauma and pain and abuse, by the way. Not every situation is the same. In fact, I think hardly any situation is ever the same. That's why you got to pay attention to the details.
That's beautifully said, bro. I think that it's inspiring because there's a lot of people who are on that threshold that we talk to, that we've been there ourselves, where you are holding on to stuff that's causing a lot of pain, and there's probably some help available, and you got to take a step, to get it. I think when I think about what you said about peace, maybe one of the most under-talked about misconstrued scriptures is Jesus says, blessed are the peacemakers. I always focused on the makers, peacemakers. So if you just look at it half the word, it's like, oh, Christians are supposed to be peaceful. Not actually what Jesus said. To make peace means there is war.
That's right.
So Jesus was like, blessed are those that walk into the hardest things, the worst things, the most dysfunctional things, and bring peace. Peacemakers. So that's what sometimes to get peace, you got to go through a lot of pain.
Yeah,
there's no way around it.
It takes a strong will to get healthy.
Yeah.
It takes a level of conviction and discipline to be able to get to where you want to be. And there's nothing easy about it because you feel like giving up. You feel like stopping. In fact, it's easier to go back to how things were. The issue with how things were, for me, it's what got me to my 30s dealing with all this pain because it was never dealt with. Realizing now, which is the best name for a podcast, by the way, of turning the lights on, we got to expose it. Because if we don't expose it, it's going to continue to live. The issue is that you created this toxic environment and you're identifying it as health. Which, by the way, when we talk about this room, this beautiful room that we get to do Soho Bible study in, one of the statements we always say is, if bad company corrupts good character, imagine what good company could do.
Yeah.
We've been a part of church for a long time. Both you and I, we've been at a lot of services, conferences, and people have promised help and then have fallen short on actually being able to help people.
Yeah.
I do not want to be someone that just preaches a sermon, offers a sermon series, creates cool clothing merch, and think that that's enough.
Yeah.
We have to figure out a way to help people. Like, I love in this building, while we are starting our service, there's an AA meeting that's starting in the basement.
Yep.
And it goes on for an hour. So we start at 7. We usually end around 9. AA goes from 7 to 8. Those guys come up and they're seeing or hearing. And we just heard a story the other day where one of the guys came in and said, "What is this?" And he saw on one of the pieces of paper in the back that had the initials of Soho Bible Study, SBS. He looked at it and he goes, "Those are my initials." His exact initials were SBS.
Awesome.
And he said, "This must be God for me to be here." And he comes in. And I want to be a part of a community that's able to
Do you let
help
him in?
people.
I mean, did he have the right clothes on, or what's the deal? Are you just letting any willy-nilly person just stroll into
Absolutely.
church?
So,
You
yeah,
understand
any
this
clothes
is the
is the
house
right
of
clothes.
God? Let's not get too trendy, okay? Let's be careful with that. I with the AA meeting, different meaning to me now because the first... our life had just exploded. And we were I felt like we were running and hiding to a degree. And the first meeting I went to was an AA meeting in this small Catholic church in Connecticut. And it's funny because I walked through the actual auditorium to the basement where the chairs were, which I had seen my whole life. And I was like, there's meetings. You know, I've led churches where it's like, we got AA in there, whatever. And there's always an offhand vibe I gave it. Not intentionally, but that's just kind of how it is.
Sure.
And then I sat in one of those chairs as an addict. And I had so many emotions, but one of them was I feel the presence of God more here than there. And I lived my whole life up here. And I thought to myself, I'm going to find as many pastors as I can to get these meetings out of basements. Because the difference in that circle that you find underneath all the fancy services, those guys who meet, you know, if a church can be kind enough to open their effing doors to let an AA meeting in there, the only way you can get in that circle is if you're an addict. You're not allowed to come in if you're well. It's a reverse guard. Kind of how church should be, but it's reverse for big church. Like, you got to have it together and you got to belong here and you got to whatever, like keep AA meetings they are lethal with their protection. Like, you're not an addict, you don't belong here. We protect each other. This is only for people who are surrendered, admit they are powerless against this addiction, and are ready to look to heaven to fix what's breaking them. You're not allowed in. I remember sitting in this thing going, and some guy comes up to me and goes, "What did you do to end up in this meeting in Connecticut at the bottom of this church?" And I went, "It's a long story, man." He said, "Well, I'm just glad you're here." A lot of those moments, by the grace of God, will never leave me, bro, because the humility and the transparency and the vulnerable nature of people who have admitted that they're addicts, there's so much power in it. And I think that we've missed that sometimes in modern day church. We miss that element of I don't have it all together, and this is me. This is me as I am. Like, nobody is checking statistics in an AA circle. Sure. Nobody. No one's looking at performance. It's like, man, you made it. Let's give it up for this guy.
Yeah,
it's his first night here. Like, there's so much about that culture.
Yeah. What about the idea of applauding someone after admitting what they've been battling with?
Right. It's a weird. It felt like a different world.
But that's how we should be operating.
You are correct, my brother. But I think that's the new wave. By the way.
Yeah.
I think the days of the stale, fake, try to keep it together movements, they're on their last legs because nobody is buying it. Because they shouldn't. It's like, man, I can't do this. That's why I'm here in the first place. So all that to say, I think it's beautiful that you're in a space that is just as real up top as it is. But I will say to any pastors that are listening, if you do have an AA meeting in your church somewhere, maybe put it at a place that's in your church that doesn't feel like it's a shameful meeting.
Sure.
Like, I know some pastors who are like, yeah, we let them use our basement. Why not let them use your lobby? I don't know. Why not invite? Like, why?
Yeah.
Why is that like? So I just think there's something in that. So if anybody's listening, hear my heart on it. Some of those meetings in churches, those are the ones that need to have the spotlights on them.
Sure.
Those are the ones that need to be copied. So yeah, it struck me being here tonight that I remember what it's like.
The Lights On podcast is partnering with Planner, a brand new organization that Carl and I love personally that is focused on meeting the needs of women who are faced with unexpected pregnancies. From mentorship to financial aid to doctor's appointments, even resources to make adoption easier, Planner exists to help women feel empowered to face real challenges. You can download the Planner app now, and you can find out more information at planner.org and even sponsor a woman in need today for as little as $9. Help us make a difference in the lives of people that need our help.
I wonder how many pastors need to be in meetings like that but refuse to admit that they need it.
Oh, Chris Durso, I'm not ready to go in on this just yet. That's next chapter of the podcast. I'm just going to let it fly.
Well, I'm just...
yeah, bro. Okay, there's more addicts in church leadership than... There's a lot.
For sure For sure there is, which... We've known each other for so long.
Yeah.
I was there through your journey.
Yeah.
So to watch how people treated you, to watch how people responded to me for battling PTSD and going quiet, by the way.
Sure.
How hysterical is that? Well, I didn't hear from you on social media. Oh, I'm sorry. I was healing. I'm sorry I didn't put up the appropriate post for you.
Well, that's the impetus for relationship. Hey, man, you didn't post a lot, so I thought you were good or whatever. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, that's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I think about how people respond, but you know what I've learned on this side of it is that people respond poorly because they've stewarded their own soul and their own emotions poorly.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with themselves. So what would the landscape of church look like if we were willing to have pastors that were honest about their pain, about their difficulty? It shouldn't be that shocking when a pastor is honest about their pain points. Yeah. It shouldn't be that scary.
No, I think I explained this to somebody the other day who was very genuine in their frustration for what they felt was the way I was treated, and I was very clear in that there is a line and there's a standard. I violated standards, and I rightfully needed to be removed from the position I had. That's Bible. That's fair.
Sure.
That's not an issue. I think the reaction to anybody who falls beyond that, it says more. I heard this beautiful statement, like, your reaction to my story says more about you than it does my story.
That's right.
And that really got me, because I look back at the times where people have told me things that have made me want to run or hide or made me embarrassed, or where I'm like, man, that's not even my story. Like, what? And so you see that in church a lot, where someone goes through something, the people who vacate that space really quick, you might want to check why that is. Like, you might want to dig, pretty deep and go, what about that makes me feel like I'm about to get exposed.
Okay, but hold on, just real quick, Carl.
It's my podcast. Nobody tells me what to do.
because I
We're gonna
watch
take up
you,
an offering.
I watch you do this, and I love that you always take the ownership of it. However, pastors are created to help people through hardship. So the fact that anyone's story, whether they sinned or didn't sin, in my case, I didn't sin. I had PTSD from being abused as a child. Why would my story dysregulate you? So in my own life, the people that were supposed to protect me, when they are completely overwhelmed and can't even have a conversation in my life as an adult, and talk with me about what just happened. Again, this speaks to the fact that they are dysregulated. I heard Dr. Anita Phillips say that the person with the strongest nervous system...
She's a personal friend.
She's amazing.
Go ahead.
Person with the strongest nervous system wins. How beautiful is that?
Fair.
The person with the strongest nervous system wins. So if I tell you my story and it gets you dysregulated, what does that say about you? I should be able to trust a pastor, a leader, a Christian. I think that Christian leaders should not just study theology. They should study psychology. I think they should work on regulating their own nervous systems, because when something comes at you that has nothing to do with your sermon notes, by the way, and it throws you off, that speaks to the fact that you're not even equipped for the job that you should be able to do. I mean, in my case, I was molested. So 2 out of every 5 people are molested. That means there are people in your congregation that have not been able to work through the pain of being molested. I also learned in therapy that the average male that ever works through their abuse does it at 70. Or dies never talking about it. I did it in my 30s because of the amount of stress that I was under. That's what my therapist tells me, and it just came to the forefront. Well, that means there are people sitting in your congregation that are never going to get the help they need, but yet you are preaching hope, hope, hope. And they're all about the hope, except they don't know how to heal. You got to help them heal so that they could understand that the hope is through the healing. It's not just this ambiguous thought that will eventually fall on them, or some feeling that will hit their spirit, but it's actually a process, which a biblical term for that is stewardship, which Paul uses the New Testament to write about, by the way. We have to steward our souls.
I think, I mean, there's such a bright day coming. That's what, if someone asked me how I feel, and someone did the other day about like the future of the church, I'm like, Brett, it's really beautiful, because it's so much, it's hard work to get really healthy. And I think the future of some of the Christian operation that I see, it's going to include a lot more head stuff, because we have completely skipped it. And I look back even on our roads as youth pastors, like if I could go back and retrain myself as a youth pastor, I would have done crazy short sermons, crazy. And I would have spent the whole time making sure people know how much God loves them and what the grace of God is, and talk about thinking a lot. Like our big conferences and the stuff that we did, they're important and they matter, but teaching people quicker. Like the most conversations I have right now are with my kids' friends. And I learn a lot from them, and I hope I give value as well, but it's really clear that these brains of 15-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 21-year-old amazing young people, man, it's a minefield. And we sometimes are speaking over that stuff. So I look forward to the day where that's coming, that's even here. I'd even say it's here, bro. I mean, I think there's a bunch of people doing this right. And I think that gets me excited. I think and I want to say something to those that there's a lot of people who watch this pod that do struggle with addiction. Don't let anybody shame you.
That's right.
They don't matter. Just be bold. Keep getting the help that you need, and don't let anybody make you feel like you're less than. I think that vibe is like, there's some addicts in our church. Some addicts in your church? Bro.
Right.
Are you kidding me? Like it's almost like, what level are you willing to expose? And so I'm proud of you for doing the work, because health produces health, and it attracts health. And it also pushes away the toxic. So I look forward to seeing what's going to happen with, this new chapter of your own health. It's going to be powerful. What have you learned about managing relationships now that you are a middle-aged white man? Isn't that it feels so bad.
Why add that detail?
Because I was joking with a friend the other day. I'm like, because that's always like the thing that people say to like speak about racism, whatever. We got these middle-aged white guys, and I'm like, wait a second, I'm 46. they're talking about me. As a middle-aged white guy, cis white guy, are these still things? Like, do we still say things like that? I don't know. I was never into the multiple title thing ever, ever. But being a cis white guy, how have you navigated your adult friendships? Because it's a changing thing a lot, and we don't think that, but it is.
Yeah, I mean, I thank God for the real ones. And what I mean by that is when I went through what I went through, there were a lot of people that I knew I would see. Then there were also a lot of people that I thought I would see that I didn't see. They went quiet on me.
Yeah.
They went absent on me. Some of them ran because they did not know how to handle it, going back to regulating your nervous system. Other guys ran because they had stuff that they were dealing with in secret that they had now publicized, and for whatever reason, they now thought that if they got too close to my situation with all the hardship that I walked through with my family, it would somehow shine a light on them, which just speaks to the idea that there are a lot of unhealthy people that are projecting like they're healthy, but as they choose to run, when in reality, they should be dealing with it because you can't fake health. When I think about relationships, I thank God for the people I have. I thank God for the people that have shown up. I thank God for the people that check in on me. And because it's not just me, it's my wife and it's my 2 amazing children. My family and my wife and my children and I are closer than we've ever been.
Yeah.
And there are some beautiful people that have rode out with us. And then there are other people, sadly, that have just distanced themselves, which is heartbreaking, by the way, because again, they should be the first ones showing up.
Here's a really cool frame that helps me. And first of all, you're a really good friend. You always have been, and it needs to be said. You're amazing. I think there's a frame that I heard. It talks about that gap, like when you feel like someone isn't there for you or has let you down. One of the most powerful things you can do is turn your head and work on your own gaps. And it makes you a better friend. So I even shifted some of my heartbreak into healing power, because it's like, which one are you going to choose? And I started going, all right, let me think about the stuff that I feel like I didn't get. Right or wrong, I don't care. Like, what did I need? And now that's all I do. And I love the friend I can be to people, because I took what was meant to be something that can be bitter.
Right.
And my prayer was always, I just don't want to be the bitter guy. And the only way I got through that was to take what I felt like I really could. For instance, like I learned presence is everything to someone who's hurting. Sure. And there is a line where if you go through an issue with a friend and you feel like you have to take space, you got to do what you got to do.
Right.
This isn't the time or the place to judge it, whatever. But if you're able, presence is the thing you need. I was talking to a friend of mine. I thanked him for giving his time. I wasn't talking about like I'm talking about like you didn't just call or write or whatever, like you gave us your time. Because what it can feel like sometimes is people you're not worthy of and worthy might be the wrong word. They're just like, I'm choosing not to give you any of my time. I'll text you, I'll call you, or whatever, but like time?
Yeah.
So I've learned I can give that to people. Maybe it's coffee, maybe it's a phone call, whatever it is, but I've found that flip to be so empowering, because it's like I don't even remember the impetus for the pain because I stole it. And I'm like, all right, rather than point at all the stuff that I'm mad at,
Sure.
what if I just kind of focused on being the friend that I desperately want?
Yeah.
You know, and I think, so when you sit here, what kind of friend do you endeavor to be? Like, what have you found to be the values of your newfound, like, because I also think we always think we're rolling with people we're going to roll with forever.
Yeah.
And then life happens.
Yeah.
And you're like, I never thought I would have that crew of friends not be my friends and have this new crew. Like, so the older you get, you're just, you handle it differently. So I'm with you for life. You're like, maybe.
Yeah, possibly.
Let's have a great July.
Or maybe not yet. Maybe don't promise life.
Let's just have a great July.
And just show up tomorrow.
But because sometimes God's in control of that. Like sometimes we don't even understand that shifting relationships often mean new harvest, new field, new opportunity.
God is in control of that, but also there are a lot of people that are controlling their behaviors because they're not doing the work that they need to do. I remember having a conversation with you a few months ago, and you said to me that a pastor had shared with you that the gift you've been given is most people don't find out who's with them until they die.
True.
So who shows up to the funeral?
Yep.
And the people that respond in that moment, or how they don't respond, whatever the case may be, is proof in who they really are. You got that gift early because in your hardest season, there were people that you expected to show up and did not show up. To be honest with you, I do find it as a gift for me to see who was there and who wasn't there. Because let me also say this, the person that wasn't there, I want to show that person how to be a friend. I want to be able to grab them and say, hey man, it's okay. I know that the hard parts of life are scary. However, they're not so scary that you have to run. There's actually a better way. Because if you did this with me, you might end up doing it to somebody else. You might do it to your spouse. You might do it to your children, and you're gonna lead them astray. You're gonna hurt them. You're gonna offend them. I do believe that God has people that will be in our life for seasons. I also believe that if we steward our own souls correctly, we could be friends with people longer than a certain moment.
Yeah, and when you get those, those are special for sure. I think.
But shouldn't that be the case for us as believers?
Maybe. I think there's a bunch of different ways to answer it. I think there is something to be said
the answer
for
is yes. No, I'm kidding.
You mother. No, there's something to be said for leaving relationships as well.
Sure.
And my emphasis on that equation is always like, I cannot control that. And any time spent over here upsets me. Yeah. So I found, and I share with people that I ask, like, hey, if you are ever frustrated or you're tempted to be to sit in the bitterness, maybe take some notes, cool, but just work on you.
Yeah.
There's so much freedom there. And I think and then you start attracting people who are doing the same thing, and that's where kind of the friendships you've been looking for end up kind of falling in your lap to a degree. So yes, to what you're saying, for sure, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, when it comes to how we frame relationships, without a doubt. I'll tell you how fun our relationship has always been, though. Month 2 at Hillsong, New York City.
Yeah.
We have communion. And I go, I think we did something ridiculous. Like we just did spontaneous communion, and then we had a service coming up. I remember telling Joel Houston at the time, we don't have the communion stuff. What are we going to do? And we were going to use buckets, whatever. And I was like, Chris, do you think I can borrow some of your church's communion trays? And we'll give them back before anybody knows. I don't know what you did or how you did it, but you rolled up with some of your boys with communion trays.
Yeah.
And we filled them and we used them and we gave them back dirty. That old adage, give something back better than you found it. Not me, not that. Those were dirty trays, Irving Plaza grime on them.
It was amazing.
You didn't really ask for any context. Like, that's my favorite thing about some friends. It's like, what do you need? Communion trays.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, that was, this is a fun memory because we wouldn't have had it that day, but you came through. I don't know, did you do anything illegal to get those, or?
Yeah, I stole them. and I disobeyed because I asked a certain leader in the church that was over the communion
Where
trays.
do they live? This is like decades old animosity I've got pent up. I didn't even know I could have. So I found out something I could be mad about in hindsight. Who said
Regulate. No, so I asked for permission to use the communion trays, and they said no. And I said, oh, awesome, okay. And then I went and I grabbed them anyway, and I brought them over to you. And I remember you asking, you were like, your church was cool with this? And I was like, yeah. So I stole and I lied for the sake of the gospel, so that people could take communion.
By any means necessary.
Yeah,
doesn't the Bible say that? It's like, no, the Bible doesn't say any means necessary. What gets you through, like, let's just say someone's faith is kind of shaky, or even, I don't know, it's not there. What gets you through when you simplify it all, when you open up this giant Bible, Tim Tebow style? Shout out to Tim Tebow, by the way. Context is that guy carries around the biggest Bible. I remember like, hey, Tim, I know you love Jesus, bro. You can get a smaller Bible. Highlighters. Amazing. I always used to say, hey, be careful of the people where everything's highlighted, because that means nothing's highlighted. If you want to find somebody today, find somebody who has really strategic underlines. You stay away from the highlighter people. The 19 bookmarks. Have you seen those people?
Absolutely.
It's like, how many places could you be saving? Like, what are you doing, a dissertation on, your New King James Hybrid Message Bible. Like,
I love how much thought you
a
put into
freaking
this.
Bible app. When you look at the Bible,
Yeah.
where do you go? Let's just say you had to read something today. What would you read? Where would you go?
Man, I mean, I'd start in the New Testament, but I think if you just go Genesis straight
No.
it's
Stop
beautiful.
it. Stop it. I'm asking you a real question. I want to hear all
That's
that.
a real question.
No. Where does Chris Durso go right now in his car if he feels anxious and he feels rushed and he feels pressure and you had to read the Bible? Where would you go?
Man, I love the writings of Paul. I love that verse that says there's nothing in all this world, neither height nor depth, angel nor demon, past nor present, that could separate you from the love of God.
Where is that found?
That's found in Romans.
What translation?
That sounds like NIV. Yeah, so Romans 8:38 says there's nothing in all this world, neither height nor depth, angel nor demon, past nor present, that can separate you from the love of God through Christ Jesus our Lord.
What does that do to your soul?
That lets me know that there's nothing that I could be facing or dealing with that means I'm alone or isolated. God is there with me. He's going to walk with me. He's going to talk with me. There's not a decision, a feeling, a word that I could say that's going to cause him to abandon me. The truth is, even if everyone does leave you, if I have God, I have all that I need. And that sounds really preachy, but when you walk through a season like I've walked through, you find so much comfort in knowing that the one I needed the most was always there for me. And his name is Jesus. That's why I get so excited when I get the opportunity to talk to someone that doesn't know Jesus or is trying to understand the Bible. Am I reading it the right way? Am I praying the right way? Which language do I use? And it's like, use all the language. Use every word that you would use in normal conversation to describe what you are feeling to Jesus, because he's big enough, by the way, for all your emotions, and he's big enough for all your feelings.
I hope people hear there's a lot of power in that revelation that you shared. I think that there's a lot to be, my point even asking you that is it can be overwhelming for people. And if you do this for a while, something that looks like a scripture to somebody else, that's a beautiful reservoir of hope that you've dug out. So I think I'm encouraging people to find something and stick with it. Find a verse, find an anchor, get to know it really well. And I think it could change your life. I think it's beautiful. We're going to go get some food momentarily. What do you see for this chapter for you that keeps you up in the best way? Give me some sort of inkling for what you think might go down here in the city.
Freedom, revival, seeing people come in off the streets that maybe don't look like they would even hang out together or go to church or quote unquote belong in church, seeing people spill into the church and pour into the church and have this curiosity about this Jesus, regardless of their age, regardless of their gender, regardless of their race, but willing to come around the truths and the teachings of Jesus. Man, nothing excites me more, especially in a city that so many people have written off.
We haven't written it off. God hasn't.
That's right.
Chris Durso, I love you.
I love you.
I cannot wait to see this new path that's getting carved. Keep being a New Yorker. Keep doing you. Always have your back, as you know. And this city needs you, brother. So to all my friends in New York, I know there's a lot of people who are trying to find a community again that makes sense to them in every metric that really matters to them. Soho Bible study is right now monthly.
Yeah.
But they can follow you. What's your Insta handle?
My name, Chris Durso, or they could follow us on Instagram at Soho Bible Study.
Yeah. Watch that space. I can't wait to check it out myself. Thank you for hanging.
Thank you. I love you.
Lights off.
You guys say I love you back.
I love you.